Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of RZDXWLVS Podcast. I'm your host, Joe, and to my left is my very handsome and very distinguished co-host, JC Coates.
Joe, how we doing today, brother?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Happy Saturday, dude. I
Dude,
just saw you and
you just see me a couple days ago.
In California.
Yeah.
Now we're back here in Vegas.
I know.
At the podcast.
I'm in way better mood today.
I can tell.
So the other day I'm driving the I don't even want to give them credit, but I'm driving the new car I just bought. That's an electric car that, used to be sold with flamethrowers, lighters.
Yeah.
And and as you know, I just hate that car. I hate that
Yeah,
car.
we had some charging issues.
Had some charging issues. I had charging issues again yesterday.
Honestly, I'd rather just have a car with gas, but whatever.
Well, yeah. Well, then I my wife, bless her heart, you know what I mean, she went and got the new tires on my car and things that just needed for a while. She picked it up from the mechanic, and
Nice.
And I have the Challenger, the
Okay.
Mopar, and
Nice.
then and I didn't really give a shit if I had to put $1,500 in gas in it to drive it for the weekend. But I was like, man, I just felt like my testosterone levels, on top of being my testosterone levels being good because of Be More, my testosterone levels are definitely correct this weekend because I drove out to Vegas in my Challenger, and I just felt like,
that gas power.
gas power.
Just in time for the podcast.
I know, man. And so we have an amazing special guest. I can really consider this gentleman one of my best friends. He's an amazing human being. He's one of the most positive people I've probably met. Even when he's not very positive, it's more positive than most people. And I've spent Ian Loveless.
How you guys doing?
Ian, welcome to the show.
Good to meet you,
and
brother.
then he's also one of our partners with Raised by Wolves. He was at the breakfast. Remember the breakfast?
Yeah, the breakfast.
The
legendary
at
breakfast.
the omelet house.
Yeah.
When we were thinking about what we were gonna do and how we were gonna help people and what the hell this actually was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
It was still kind of manifesting.
I still have that picture. I'm gonna post it. I think I'm gonna have Chris edit that picture a little bit, Photoshop a little bit, because there's some of in the picture, some of in that picture are not with us anymore. Not because we don't like them, just because they didn't see
It's just the way it worked out.
You know,
different avenues. I feel like that was a
avenues.
stepping stone. That
Absolutely.
was kind of just kind of tilling up the ground to see what we could do, and then now here we are 3 years later.
Yeah.
It's actually come to life.
Is it 3 years?
It's been 3 years, bro. That was 2020.
That was into 2020.
That was in
That was
2020,
in
bro.
the end of 2020 because we had because we had to set separate from it's only so many people at a table and
It's crazy how time flies, but yeah,
everyone's scared of the
started with a
flu
little
and it was
dream.
crazy. Yeah, it started with a dream.
and now it's howling.
And now I just showed you a quote on how much it's going to cost to build out the flagship real deal Kava and Crate bar that we're putting together, in Palm Desert.
Exciting.
And so and then JC is in the loop, and then we're driving over here, and Ian's just like, so when JC get on board with this? And I was like, dude, it was all kind of an accident, but it's like I haven't really explained to him the Be More connection. I haven't explained what we're doing, but I kind of filled him in 5 minutes, kind of on your journey. What I mean, that we'll talk about later and stuff. And
It feels natural. I mean, when I first saw you involved with it, I was like, okay, yes,
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
these all fit.
And then I just said last week you were in California, and I was just like, because we never really talked about it, but you just naturally became like the co-host of what we were doing, and I was like, and you make me feel better because it's like, it's like when you first start learning how to play basketball and you become pretty decent at it, but then you got Michael Jordan that's coaching you,
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you're like, hey, bro, can you think you could stick around a little bit and can you be my 2-on-2 partner a little longer? And so I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad we're doing this.
I'm happy to support. I'm happy for the journey, and I think this mission behind this podcast is really important, right? And I love to be able to attach myself to things that give me purpose, right? And helping people. Here's the thing. Most of us have a time in our life when we have some trauma, right? Unfortunately, a lot of us don't make it through it, right?
Yeah.
But some of us do, right? And I think all the guests that are on here, including Ian today, has a story of that, overcoming that. And so, I mean, what better podcast could you get on and be a part of? So,
Man, I appreciate that. Yeah, Ian. We have it's like you meet people in this life during your journeys, whether that's negatively affecting your life journeys or positively affecting your life journeys along the way, and you kind of know Like, okay, there's a reason the universe put us together to be friends.
It's that
And
spiritual magnetism.
And I feel that because we met in business, in the cannabis industry, and I feel that that's not going to be, I'm not going to grow old as your friend or your friend because of really how we met. We met through music. We met kind of through a music connection. And I met you through the cannabis connection. And I feel like our purpose together is going to be way more than music or cannabis. It's going to be affecting a lot of people's lives. And
absolutely,
it
already is.
Yeah, the purpose of this podcast, and I won't sidebar too much because you have an amazing story that everyone needs to hear. Really, is not. I tell people because I get asked like at least maybe 2 or 3 times a week, like, what are you doing this podcast for?
Yeah.
And I tell people it's not because I want to be and if anybody that knows me for any amount of time knows that I want to be the guy behind the scenes. I don't want to be the guy out in the open. Like, I'm very much a, growing up like a graffiti writer and a hoodlum and stuff. You don't want to be too well out there. And then getting in the cannabis industry, when I did, was like, you don't want to be on Front Street. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be kind of back here. But if this podcast can help people, like you just mentioned, like help them with their journey, you know what I mean? And if like you can just take a little bit out of each one of these episodes, or and use it in your own lives, or a certain person like Jimmy, like being a crack addict that now has 40 letters after his name and has helped so many people, and you being a successful musician, and what you're doing, and like what we're doing, and if we can come out on the other end, you know what I mean, and then we can help other people. That's what this podcast is for.
And I think it's like also like what I've gathered from watching your guys' episodes too is like, if I take myself out of being a part of Raised by Wolves and just a spectator, it shows your humanity, something that people can relate to, you know, because like if you're a big business or you're a big plan, it can be kind of intimidating, and it's like, well, where do I, as just a regular guy struggling with my little secret, fit into this? But it's like, you share your story, your wife shared your story, you share your story, Jimmy, me, just to show people like we are just like you, like, and we all found ourselves in a place that we swore we would never get to. Some of us in a place like we never imagined, we could get to. So I think that's really important as far as like, as Raised by Wolves is moving forward, like, we're just a bunch of dudes, we came out of it, and you can, anybody else can too.
What a great purpose,
Hell yeah. This
absolutely.
I'll spend the rest, when I'm done in the career that I'm primarily in now, I'll spend the rest of my life helping people. That's the goal. Like, what I mean, is helping people, and there'll be a lot of heartache in helping people.
There is.
But there's going to be a lot of rewards to helping people too. But to kind of jump right into it, if you don't mind, is that we have I kind of sent you a little bit of an outline on kind of how we do this, and then we might even switch it up a little bit today, because JC had some really cool key points the other day when we were driving around, or actually probably when I was waiting the 45 minutes to charge the dumbass Tesla. All right, no more to talk about
he
that.
Dropped the keyword. Can we get like a wolf or a chicken noise on the keyword there? Just edit that in and
so
post.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But so we want to really start, if we jump right into it, we want to start, kind of pre-addiction, like when you were a child. Like, can you tell us a little bit, like, kind of where you grew up, where you were born, where you kind of grew up at?
So I was born in a little town up in Oregon called Grants Pass. And primarily it was me and my mama, due to some things between my mom and my father at the time. And then my biological father came into my life later on. And essentially there was disagreements from parents on how things should be handled, and ultimately I was the one who kind of suffered from that. So as a little kid, I was taken from my mom and basically told, like, look, I know you and your mom are like everything to each other, and you speak a language that only you two understand, but we're about to throw you to the wolves right now, and you can't see her again, like, indefinitely, is what it was at the time. So that's kind of like, the origin story of a villain or whatever, what I'm saying? Like, that was the first wound, and it was like female trauma. And then I had a stepmother who had her secret addictions. And after a while, like, I had to spend a lot of time with her because my father had to work a lot to pay child support for my little brother and to keep her happy and to keep me fed and clothed and stuff. So, he wasn't around to see a lot of it, and he didn't really have an idea. And she took a lot of it out on me. Told me later on it's because she felt threatened because I looked like my mama, and my mom was prettier than her. But, she exposed me to a lot of things. Like, I had seen, cocaine for the first time, found it in the bathroom, tried it for the first time, Vicodins.
How old were you?
Junior high. Junior high, the first
So
time I
13,
crushed
12,
up
13.
crushed up a Vicodin and snorted it, and I have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, I mean, now you find out a lot of that's tied to environmental issues and diet.
Sure.
And I mean, I was a TV dinner kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That pretty much says it all right there.
Mm-hmm.
Lectins and cardboard. So yeah, so you know, they tried different medications because it wasn't so much my dad making those decisions, but my stepmom was the driving force. She kind of had like Munchausen syndrome, like kept my little brother thinking he was sick for a long time, and now he's doing really good, healthy, successful. He's, you know, had to step away from her. But it was like you go from female trauma, losing your mom, to now this person's in your life, and this is an example of what a woman's going to be for you, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And she had just, I mean, bottles hidden everywhere, a turning leaf Chardonnay, pick the kids up from school with a sippy cup full of wine, and meltdowns, waking me up at, you know,
This was your stepmom.
my stepmom, yeah, waking me up at like 2, 3 in the morning, trying to tell me where my dad's been, you know, telling me he's been sleeping around, and so I got to pack my shit and sit out on the curb when I got to be in school in a few hours, you know, like just stuff like that. And so I noticed she's taking drugs.
Yeah.
Maybe I could take drugs and not give a shit too.
So let me stop you there for a minute,
Yeah.
because it's interesting. It's like, first of all, it's like it's crazy how we're born into this world under kind of like the dreams and the lives that's been created by
Absolutely.
our parents before us, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like we're just in that, and then we accept that to be kind of our truth, right? So it's like, you know, all these things are happening to you with your mom and the trauma's going on. Like, how do you feel internally about yourself, right?
A lot of self-rejection,
are you-
a lot
are
of
you-
unworthiness, a
You
lot
getting
of
some beliefs there? I'm
yeah,
unworthy.
totally. I'm
because-
unworthy. I don't matter. I don't have a voice.
Is it because you were jumping? It was because,
Well, I
'cause
mean-
you were put in the middle of a bunch of trauma.
I was, and prior to that, I mean, like, well, so I'll just tell you. So my mom broke a court order because she didn't like the way that things were being handled on my dad's end, and you know that, like I said, they had disagreements. And she took me to Maine. So essentially, she kidnapped me, is
Yeah.
what they said.
and
But,
you
I mean,
didn't
it-
have a voice, right?
I
You
didn't
felt-
have a voice. I mean, I even shut down and stopped talking for almost a year when I was in receiving homes and foster homes. But I mean, yeah, we were in Maine, and it was just kind of like, oh, we're going camping. And she actually signed a thing and had my dad sign permission. We're going camping for a month. And we just hightailed it. This was before cell phones. I mean, pagers were just becoming a thing maybe like a year or something later, a couple years later. So, you know, I think she had me call my dad initially, like the first couple days. And then it was like, we're taking a road trip. I went to sleep and I woke up and we're halfway across the country. And she wholeheartedly believed, I mean, that's my mama. She loved me more than anything. She wholeheartedly believed that she was doing what was right. But according to the, you know, the court systems and the laws made, she kidnapped her own child, which is pretty damn ridiculous.
The
but-
laws are crazy. I think
Yeah.
in some situations, you know, maybe I shouldn't sidebar too much here. Some situations, the laws are crazy because if the parent is not putting their kid in harm, like if they've not
Yeah.
been proven to be on drugs or a bad person or, you know what I mean, mental disorders,
Yeah.
something like that, you know, which also, again, it could be misconstrued, you know, is it really kidnapping? The laws are crazy.
I mean, in my opinion, it wasn't. You know,
How old were you?
I was when I want to say, you know, you block a lot of stuff out. And
Sure.
so I've been kind of piecing it back together on my healing journey,
Yeah.
putting my head in a safe, strong space in my sobriety and my recovery where I'm like, okay, this sucks, but I got to sit with this.
Yeah.
I got to sit with this. I got to look at all these pieces and
Yes.
see what landed me to putting a needle in my neck
Yeah.
years later.
Which I think is so good. I don't mean to
yeah,
interrupt you, but
no.
it's like, you know, this is why it's so important for, I think, a part of the story for like people who struggle with addiction and stuff,
Yeah.
because at this part, this is where you're like forming beliefs
Yeah,
about
that
who
stuck
you
with
are
me.
and how the world is, right? And then that's what kind of leads you down into this crazy
Totally.
place. What do you think some of those main self beliefs about yourself and the world were as you became, you know, like almost an adult? Like you're you know, you started to do drugs, you're 18, 19.
Yeah, the heart got hard down the line.
Okay.
But like to answer his question too, and I'll segue into yours. I want to say I was 8 years old, and my mom got a job in Maine, and she took off to work. It was the night before my little brother's birthday, or it may have been my little brother Vincent's birthday, his 5th or 6th birthday. And I kissed my mama goodbye, and I didn't see her again until I was a senior in high school. And so that was just kind of like that segue. So then we'll lead into that. When I was a senior in high school and my mom came back, my girlfriend at the time was like a year younger than me. So she's like doing her like junior prom. And my mom's like, you got to go. You know, she's like supporting me again. But I was so hard-hearted towards feminine, like just feminine energy, no trust, like, you know, like none of that stuff. So unfortunately, I've used this term with you, you know, our spirit will reject good medicine when it doesn't know what that is.
Yeah.
You know? And so like
Boy, that's true.
prior to that, you know, anything that basically kind of exonerates you from having the responsibility of why your kid's messed up, and like, you know, like I was acting out, I was fighting, I was doing all this stuff in school. I mean, big time. I was a badass little kid, like, you know, and I know I put a lot of gray hairs on my dad's head. But yeah, so like, oh, he's got ADHD, so it's not our fault. You know, he's fucked up, or you know, he's messed up. So then, you know, you get put on Ritalin, you get put on Adderall, then you notice like, oh shit, if I snort these, I get off. And, you know, stepmom's like, oh, Colin's sick, he needs meds. Ian's sick, he needs meds. She's telling me I'm crazy because they, you know, there's this thing that people said that my mom was crazy. So she's telling me all the time, you're crazy like your mom. And so, yeah, these beliefs form when my fragile young mind is forming chemically, biologically.
Yeah.
So these cement in. So here, you know, when I find myself 27 years later, and we'll get to that, kind of lead into it, but those beliefs were still running the show.
Yes.
They were. No self-love. Hey, I mean, I hated everything down to the color of my skin from the way that I was brought up and the way that everything went. So yeah, that's crucial. That's a really crucial point, because I think a lot of people can probably identify with that, you know. And you get to an age like now, me and my dad, we do have a great relationship. He's actually my boss at some of the venues I work at. And so we see each other at work every day. And I see him as a human being. He was in his 30s. I'm in my 30s. I'm about the same age that my dad was, trying to figure all this shit out as a first-time father. I was his first kid.
Yeah.
And so you learn to kind of understand and love them through that. And then you go back to his childhood and you get where he's at. And so that can be really healing. But yeah, like it's a full circle thing. We are born into this world pure of heart, you know? And you don't know what any of this stuff is. So like me, I was an extra sensitive kid. And so you're hit with this stuff and you don't have the tools to quantify what you're feeling. You don't have the tools to quantify this trauma or to put it in the boxes that we now are able to put it in. So it becomes you.
And do you think that, you know, just kind of backtrack a little bit, and man, that was man, you were like answering questions that I had like before I can even think about them. It might be because I had cheated and sent you kind of the questions beforehand, which is good.
I'll be honest, I've been busy. I kind of just glanced at them on the way here.
Oh, okay. So that's good. So, you know, so we just found out, you know, obviously like where you were born, you know, I mean, kind of how your childhood was. And then like you know, you said you were very young when you were first exposed to drugs and things like that. And then
I tried marijuana in the 5th grade. I got arrested for having an ounce of marijuana and a scale in the 6th grade.
Oh,
yeah. So that's kind of, and cigarettes, habitually smoking cigarettes at 10 years old.
What, he busting up ounces, selling quarter bags? Or what?
yeah.
It was a thing. This girl had a crush. This girl had a crush on me, right? And like the summer before, I had took a bong rip down by the creek, got all paranoid. I'm like, I gotta ride my bike home. Came home, walked into the door. I'm like, Dad, I'm tired. So I got in trouble. And then it's like, oh no, I'm not smoking anymore. And then so this girl liked me, and I was trying to like be cool. And she's like, well, what do you like? I'm like, oh, I like to smoke weed. You know, so she went and jacked a bunch of weed from her older sister in a scale, brought it to me. And then, I was like, oh, I'm about to sell weed, but not thinking about how much the shit smells. So, I mean, they instantly gang busted me, dude. I'm out like, you know, running the mile in PE, and I got it in this like whole pockets, like stuffed with weed. And then like they called me in, and there's just like,
This is great.
There's just cops
I've never heard this story
waiting
before.
for me. I had to write a letter of apology. Me and the girl, like Romeo and Juliet, couldn't see each other. Like, we were forbidden and shit.
Oh, the forbidden.
But yeah, like
love.
the cigarettes was my oldest addiction. I became heavily addicted to cigarettes, partly because when I was with my mama early on, we lived with my grandma Louise, and she smoked cigarettes in the house. So there was this nostalgia that put me back with my mama.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, sorry, Dad, but you hated cigarettes, and I was pretty mad at you. So, yeah,
Oh, man.
you know,
That's funny.
just trying to figure it out.
That's
but
awesome.
I quit. I haven't smoked cigarettes in almost 4 years. So
Oh yeah, congratulations.
finally,
man.
after 20 years of smoking them
I
damn
kicked
things.
the cigarettes about 10 years ago.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
Man,
Isn't
that
it
is a
great not to
nasty
smell?
habit.
Oh, God.
Oh
yeah.
my God! And
you
then
don't,
you get around.
but you don't notice you smell until you don't smoke
Dude,
cigarettes.
seriously.
You know, I have some, you know, they'll probably watch this, but you know, what I mean, you know, and I dislike the dudes for it, but I have some like new employees and partners that kind of came into the fold, and they remind me of my company. We just absorbed their company, and so they're a younger version company. And you met them,
Yeah.
younger version company of my company was
Yeah.
10 years ago. It kind of reminds me. So you walk in there, and everybody is like, you know, you walk, which things will change. You know, everyone's smoking weed, everyone's smoking cigarettes. There's this stints, and it's like, and I can't even really get mad because that was my company
Yeah.
10 years ago, and these guys are all about 10 years younger than me.
You're all
So
patting
it's
them
like,
on
all
the
right, cool. Well, let this go for another week or so, and then
Yeah.
because you know what I mean. But yeah, the cigarettes are something else, man. Because you don't, that smell don't go away.
Dude,
You know what I mean?
seriously.
And
And then it's like you'll talk to somebody who smoke. Like I'll talk to somebody, and I mean, at one point I was rocking broken, rotten teeth for like almost 5 years after a motorcycle crash that we'll get into, and smoking cigarettes and booze. Oh my God! And I commend my ex-wife.
What a
You know,
gangster.
and like any relationship that I was in, like how could you kiss that?
Yeah.
Like I love you for it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, here's an important question. Like, when do you feel that, like, what was the first, outside of cigarettes, because we've kind of established that's your
Yeah.
first real addiction, what do you think your first addiction was, and when do you think that you kind of recognized that, like, maybe without actually calling yourself an addict, like, when do you think that you said, like,
never
I
did.
just love to do this, like,
I was
want
in
to do this every
denial.
day?
I was in
What was
denial
that,
till my
though?
20s. It was pills.
Those pills?
Yeah, I got hooked
And
on
why
pills
why
after
why
an
was
injury.
it pills?
So I got put on. They prescribed me in California. I messed up my hip. Someone was breaking into my bass player's car, and they had this big staircase on the front of the house. And I came out in my underwear with a bat to run after him, and I slipped and just and messed myself up. And at the time, I was coming up in the local 50 union for stagehands, it's theatrical union, IATSE, and up in Sacramento. And so I'm like, you got to get all these hours to get seniority with these companies and make the big bucks. And I was like, I'm going to make the big bucks because this will support my music. And so I'm like, at one point I was walking with such a hardcore hitch in my step, dude. I'm like stepping out. Like, it was like, it's comical to think about, like, who let that guy on a job site? But the doc put me on 140 Norcos, the white ones. And I'm like, doc, these ain't working. We got to figure out something else. All right, take these yellows. And then I'm like, hey, doc, like, I got to work, you know, like, it's hard to get out of bed and stuff. So he's like, oh, well, let's bump you up. Let's do 240. Before you know it, I'm taking 380 Norcos a month, right? That goes on for about a year and a half. And then the doc cuts me off because the whole Oxycontin and all this other stuff was going on. So the doc cuts me off out of nowhere, too. No titrate down like we talk about all the time with Jimmy, and like you and I were talking about with methadone. It's just like, oh, no, like, you have a problem. What do you mean? I asked you if these were addictive, and you told me no. Don't misuse them, and you'll be fine. And I mean, who?
Doctors were told, by the way.
They
if
were
you don't know,
told
they were
to
told
do that.
to tell people they weren't
Absolutely, and
addicted.
it's not a conspiracy theory. It is absolute gospel,
fact.
and it can be backed
It's a
up by paperwork, court documents
yeah.
now. You know, and so then I go from that to, oh well, shit, I gotta buy them on the street now. So now I'm hunting. I'm finding, you know, veterans that would rather smoke weed or do other stuff, you know, and I'm buying their whole script. So I remember driving out to Vegas with my younger brother, and I was popping Norcos like Pez. You know, like for my pain, but after, I don't even remember when. I think the injury kind of started to heal after a while, but I didn't notice.
You had a new injury.
And then I went through some real bad relationship pain because, like I said, female trauma, you know, them mommy issues run deep with me, and it's something I've had to heal over the years. So then it's like, God, I'm so heartbroken over her. Like, I'll just take an extra dose, you know?
Sure.
And then before I know it, it's just like I remember going on a date with this person that I'm talking about, like when we first met. I was supposed to pick her up from the train station. She came out from the Bay Area, and I was like 45 minutes late picking her up because I had to stop and get pills first. You know, stupid shit like that. And then it's like, but you don't even notice you got a problem. It's just like, no, like, I'll spare you the details, but there are aspects to the young man that are appealing to take opiates when you're about to be with a woman, right? I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
You could fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
So you tell yourself that's why, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
there's
after
always a reason, right?
Yeah. And then after a
Which
while,
is
you're like, I
pretty
can't
good
get out of
reason.
bed without this pill.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so 3 years into popping pills like every day nonstop before I finally ran out, and I went up to Oregon to go stay with some family, and I was like, oh my God, I think I have a problem. Like, I'm sick, right? But that didn't work out because I ended up back in my hometown, and it started off great. I was with my grandparents. I was doing repairs on their house. Like, we were bonding. You know, I was seeing my aunt and uncle and one of my cousins, and then one of my kind of distant cousins I would party with, you know, kind of plugged me into the party scene there. So now it's like, you know, Nana and Papa just didn't get that, like, I grew up in the hood and I'm like a party monster, and I've been touring in rock bands, and I've been the singer of a rock band for like 10 years at this point. So I just had my little secret life. I'd go out, and then I hooked up with an old friend out there. And she was just trying to help me. I manipulated her, you know. She loved me and she wanted to see me, and I'm like, well, I'm sick. Like I can't kick it. Can you give me some pain pills? And she's like, no. And I'm like, well, can you get anything, you know? And it was like, and I had tried a little bit of heroin. And then so I ended up basically kind of bypassing her and getting this heroin plug. And she realized pretty quick after that I had a problem, you know.
Yeah.
I told her I was doing it a different way, and I would just go in the bathroom and fix up, because basically I went on tour with an artist who I won't name, and you know, I was dope sick, and it was like, well, here, you can shoot this morphine and it'll be good. I'm like, I got to get on stage right now, you know. Well, let's just go open the bus real quick, lock the door, you know. Oh my God. And the first time I did a shot, it was morphine.
Yeah.
And then it was like somebody threw a security blanket over all my bad feelings. And I had been nursing this very secret tragedy that I didn't share with my family from a previous relationship. You know, she got pregnant. I didn't know about it. We had split. And then I come to find out, like, she didn't get rid of it. Like, she told me, because I was like on tour and really hurt. And, you know, baby was born 3.5 months later. You know, she stopped breathing in her sleep from SIDS. And rather than like take the steps, you know what I'm saying? Like take the steps and actually like learn to heal. I just stuffed that down. I just put it in a little box, and it started becoming a monster and growing teeth. So fast forward, I'm up in Oregon. I'm in my hometown. I'm habitually doing heroin. You know, I'm lying to my grandparents.
Did you start off shooting heroin, or did you start?
No.
Were you smoking at first?
No, yeah, I started shooting it. I jumped right in.
Okay.
And so I did that for a while, and then I went on tour, and I'm like, okay, no more heroin. Now, if you're an addict and you're already kind of struggling, the best way to find yourself in the absolute desperation of addiction is go on tour, because now you have no self-control. So you're going to end up doing all your dope, even though you said your dope is your pills, whatever. You said you weren't going to do it. You're going to save it for the next gig. No. Oh shit. Now I'm in Vegas. I got 2 shows back to back, in one day. I'm out. So now I got to go hit the strip. I got to call up friends and what's up? I need pills. So I'm buying like, I'm spending like all the money I'm making on tour on pills just to get to the next town, just to do stuff. And then I find myself in Baltimore, Maryland, and I got some China White, and I was feeling real suicidal.
What is China White for those?
China White is East Coast heroin. I mean, it's so on the West Coast, you're doing black tar.
Yeah.
And if you don't know the history of black tar is a byproduct of making heroin. And it's really, heroin's like a byproduct of making morphine, I believe. But it was basically like down in Mexico, people that were working for these cartels that were manufacturing and cultivating all this shit, heroin. The byproduct left over in the barrels that they're making this stuff in was this tar. And they realized pretty quick, the workers, like, oh, we can get high on this shit. And they're just throwing this shit away. Like, let's scrape this up. So that's how it really started hitting the streets that way, you know, at least on the West Coast. So on the West Coast, you can only get black tar. Half the time they cut it with, brown sugar, lactose. You could literally take a spoon and you could pour Dr. Pepper in a spoon, heat it up, and it'll look just like heroin. And if you put a little vinegar in it, it's going to smell like heroin. So that's another thing you're dealing with. You don't know what you're putting in your vein. I mean, I joked around when I would speak at meetings and stuff, because I like to really get to the gritty shit first when people are in there kind of iffy. But like, you know, you don't always have water on you. So, I mean, I've shot up with Mountain Dew, Powerade. If I wanted to party, vodka, put vodka in a spoon and put heroin in it. And then after a while, I'm doing so much heroin, I'm including crystal meth into it. So I'm just crushing it all up in a spoon and shooting it in my arms. And then you run out of veins. So now you're going to your neck, your leg, whatever, you know. But yeah, I would say like touring with an addiction and being around the wrong people really inflamed that.
Yeah.
And then I came back to my grandparents' house and I realized how bad I was really fucking up. And I'm like, I just got to go. I ran from it all. And, you know, one of my aunts called me out, and she didn't know what I was dealing with. She didn't know the trauma and the tragedy that I was nursing, because I didn't know how to communicate, especially not with a woman. I didn't trust women, you know. And she did call me out, and I just kind of flipped it on her. Oh, you'll never understand, you know, because I'm in that victim mentality, you know.
No one will understand.
No one will understand. And you have to make a choice one day. Everybody's going to feel like a victim. Like we've all been screwed over. We've all been hurt.
We all have our Vietnam.
We all have our Vietnam, man. And like, you can either make that this shameful thing and you can stay in that victim mentality, or you can decide you're going to be a survivor of all that trauma, and you can make that a badge of honor. I always say, like when I would speak a lot and like being a drug counselor, like my darkest moments, like a baby stopping breathing in my arms while I'm trying to give her mouth to mouth with the paramedics on the phone, and then me trying to fight the paramedics because they're trying to take her from my hands, your darkest moment can become your guiding light later on if you take the steps to fight and heal that. Because flash forward 2 years later, you know, somebody that I really know and love, they lost a baby and they didn't know where to turn. And here I got that knowledge. I got this experience because I'm a survivor. I'm not a victim. There's no sky daddy up there saying, I'm going to take that kid. You're cool. You can live. Like, that's not happening. You know, the reality of the situation is that we manifest our own destinies. And a lot of it is that magnetism you said that brought us together, brought you guys together, brought us all here. When you're moving in a way where your intentions align with what is in your heart and what's on your heart, you will find that you'll start bringing
Your
people.
vibe attracts your tribe, right?
Your vibe attracts your tribe, dude. Like, you'll
And
bring
those-
people into your life that will hold the pieces that you don't. You know?
And the those dark moments, like you mentioned, it's like a catalyst, right? Because
Absolutely.
it's like, you know, it's like these stories, right, that we see. It's like he's getting, you know, he's going through all this trauma that's just kind of basically happening to you, right? Like when he's a kid and he's developing these worldviews. And
Yeah, I was
these-
like holding my. I know these things, and I
there's-
was like holding my breath, listening to him, like you know what I mean? Like forgot we were even doing the pod. You know what I mean? Sorry, I didn't.
But no, and then he, you know, he's like, you know, developing these internal beliefs about himself and the world and the way things are, right? And then, you know, you don't understand that those things could be harmful or that they need to change, and so you just live out 20 years, and it takes your trauma even deeper, right?
Yeah.
And then, but then some of those darkest things start to be the catalyst that start the process of you switching some of those world beliefs and internal beliefs about yourself,
Absolutely.
right? And that's when the healing starts to happen.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it
'cause
takes that pain to create that purpose.
He did good doing it. He did a really good job. Like, and obviously because you've talked a lot to people and helping people, and so I've heard a very similar version of this story, same facts, different version. Like, you know what I mean? Because we know each other, we're good friends.
Yeah.
But
it's a little more raw.
You took
when
a
I
lot
tell it off camera.
You took a lot of you went from experimenting with drugs at about 8 years old, having issues at
Started
home,
at 10.
or at 10.
Yeah.
At 10 years old, you know, very young, you had a lot of trauma at home. You kind of felt like you were in the middle of a bunch of shit going on, to your teen years, you know, acting out, you know what I mean, to, you know, getting, you know, dabbling with drugs and being pretty okay with that, not seeing that there was an issue with it, to where in your late teens, early 20s, being a full-on addict.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And not even realizing it.
And not
thinking
even
you
realize
got
it.
your shit together. Everybody's like, man, are you okay? Like I'm like, oh, I'm good, bro. I'm good. Like I got money in my pocket. Like I'm high right now.
I spoke to a guy. I spoke to a
And
guy
they're like,
yesterday.
bro, you're not good.
I spoke to a
Like,
guy yesterday that
You're 40 pounds too light right now, and I could see your cheekbones.
Yeah. If you see pictures of Ian, like, you know, when he was in this, like he looks.
Should have
like
seen my wristband pick when I was in the joint.
Completely different. And I met a guy just yesterday that I said, hey man, do you want to clean? He was completely trashed and asking me for money. I was like, dude, do you want to stop drinking? Like, why do you drink, man? Do you want to drink? Like, I'm not judging you, man. I'm just waiting for my gas to pump. I'm just asking you a question, because I'll go buy you some donut. Where like there's like the pink box and stuff like donuts. I'll buy you a donut, man. I'll buy you a sandwich, some zingers. I'll buy you something to drink, like non booze, but. Would you rather drink right now than getting like your next meal? And he was like, yeah. And I go, why? Obviously he has trauma. And I said, why? And he goes, because I don't have a problem. And I was like, all right. Then as long as you believe, and I gave him my number, which was probably crazy. You know, I gave him my number. I said, well, when you think that this is a problem and you want to not borrow money for booze, but actually get help, I said, then call me. You know what I mean? And like, and so, and I won't give business people my number. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
like,
I feel that, but that's beautiful. That's
but-
your charge. That's the
Yeah.
purpose that your pain and your missteps, what felt like. That's the thing, is I don't regret anything. Like I've dealt with a wilderness of pain in my life, and it's made me who I am today. And I know for a fact, like, and I'm not bragging, this is just the gospel truth. Like, you know, you talk about finding purpose and helping people. That's crazy. I felt so unworthy, and I did a lot of damage. I was really violent towards other men, and I hurt a lot of people. Like, I was extremely violent. I was not the dude you know today.
Well, get into when you now you're kind of recognizing that, you know, you need to take time off of touring and do some things, and then kind of talk about your life after that and kind of what led you, because I know your story. Like you've you've been locked up a few times. Like and kind of get into that if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Well, what I was just gonna say, like, coming from all that stuff, you can't even imagine a version of yourself that's even gonna not be that way or free out from under all these chains that are keeping you down, let alone a version of yourself that's actually gonna be like better than you could have imagined and actually help other people. And when I first tasted that, I'll get into that later, but when I first tasted that, I remember breaking down crying on stage. And there's a room full of ex-pimps and drug dealers and Hell's Angels and shit in the room, big old badass dudes just crying with me. And I was just like, holy shit, like I was meant for something, like, you know, like coming to that conclusion, like despite everything I've done, I can be washed of that and I can matter and I can matter to other people.
It's like a big shift in belief.
It
changes everything.
Dude, it changes everything. Like so back in the day when I did music, it was always self-serving, and like everybody's like, bro, your music's so much better now. Like, it's because I'm honest. I don't hide behind symbolism anymore. I was on cocktails of drugs always. Like, even before I was a hardcore addict, I was always on something, you know? Pills, joints, booze, whatever. Somebody could literally throw a pill on stage and I'd probably pop it back in the day. It's the way I was. And then I used to chug the hell out of whiskey. So then that's a spectacle and people encourage that. Like, you know, adios motherfuckers lined up on the stage and I'm just knocking like 6 of them and then falling into the drum set and everybody's like, yeah, you know? So that was what music was for me. And now music is this sacred thing that I believe that I was built for. That is my tool to reach into the hearts of the toughest, baddest mofos out there and pull out their inner child and walk with that inner child. Like, I never believed in myself, period, let alone that I could do that. Now, you know, I have guys come up to me. I remember when I played the last year of Warped Tour, I was doing an acoustic set with one of my best friends, and we were in Denver, Colorado. And I spoke a little bit before I sang a song called Almost Sober that I wrote. And at the time, I wasn't sober. I was off of the dope and stuff. I remember being on, I won't say the band's name, but they're a pretty big metal band. I was on their bus, and they're like, hey, homie, like, how you been? Bust out a plate of blow. I'm like, I can't. I'm just going to drink this booze. But that day, I play my set, I give it a little heart to heart, and it was like the first time I just felt called up. I kind of had a buzz going. I was like, I'm just going to talk about the fact that I used to be a junkie and I'm not no more. And I was singing with all my teeth broken and rotten, broken at the gum and like 3 jagged. My nephew used to call them beaver teeth. And so I'm like trying to sing and not really show that, but like whatever, I did it. This big old mofo in like a construction vest that was there at Warped Tour, like walks up to me afterwards and he's like, hey, bro. And he looked like he was like about to fight me, but it's because he was fighting back tears. You know, he was looking like, and I'm all, what's up, man? And he's like, can I holler at you real quick? I'm like, yeah, for sure. And I'm like kind of looking around, like I think my homie Junior was there. He was a stage manager on Warped Tour. He's one of my best friends. And so we're standing there and the dude's like, bro, I just want to thank you. And I'm like, for what? He's like, for sharing what you did. He goes, he's like, I'm so happy you're alive. He's like, can I just give you a hug? I'm like, sure, bro, what's up? You know? And he's like, my son overdosed on heroin. He's like, we found him in the room, like stiff in the corner, clutching onto the desk, white in the face, you know? And I'm like, holy shit. And he's like, yeah, you know, like, I'm just happy you're alive. So like here you are, like sharing tears with a random ass dude at a place like Warped Tour. And prior to that, a couple of years prior, I'm living in a stolen van, like shooting crystal meth and heroin, hanging out with drug dealers and street gangsters. And they're encouraging my behavior because I could walk into any store and walk out with tons of merchandise. And so then I'm like still getting that, even though I'm not doing music, I'm getting that like hood famous rush. And it's just like my life was nothing. I had no purpose but to get up, steal shit, do dope, repeat. And unfortunately, my ex-wife suffered some really bad trauma. And in her field that she was in, she had access to a lot of pills, and I'll leave that there. But she found herself in that position, and then one day she's dope sick. So I wouldn't let her shoot, you know, mix it in some Mountain Dew or whatever to get her out of it. But then before you know it, now we both really are feeling each other's addictions in tank, and she's along for the ride, and we're living in a stolen van in the hood, and I'm carrying a gun around all the time. Like I'm kicking in doors for various reasons and all kinds of shit, you know. I got shot in my leg over a situation like that because I was just a hothead. And so then you flash forward to like I'm at Warped Tour sharing a hug with this dude who lost his baby boy, to the same shit that I came out of. That's that pain and the purpose thing. That's like, if you can tap into your vulnerability, your utmost vulnerability, you find your superpower. So that was like the beginning of like, you know, this is where it started. This is where it's going right now. You know, I realized that like God, creator, the universe, whatever you want to call it, the spirit I commune with, showed me that music is a sacred medicine. Each one of us, in my opinion, has a unique piece of our creator, that creator spirit in us that is not like anybody else's. Yours is unlike anybody else's. It's not like mine. Yours is not like mine. And when we get together and we do stuff like this, that's what Wolfpack Recovery, that's what Raised by Wolves is really built on. When we get together, we manifest that God-like energy, and you can transcend anything. I mean, violence, gang addiction, all that shit. And you can come to a place like, I haven't put my hands on another man in over 4 years. And that sounds stupid, but I'm in recovery from fucking dudes up. From having a temper.
That's kind of funny, because I'm on the road here yesterday, and I was talking about, you know, how easy it was for me to get hot-headed, and like when substances are involved, you are not that's why they're called spirits in a lot of places. You're not yourself. Like I joke all the time, like, I'm gonna punch this guy in the neck, or I'm gonna do this, but that's just me being stupid. But like, there was a time where if I said that, I'd have a certain group of friends that would like, they would either leave the bar when I'd get to a certain point, or they would tell me after I got sober, like, I didn't go out with you purposely, man, because I knew if I was out with you anytime past about 11, there was a very good chance shit was gonna pop off, and it was because of you. And now it's like, I like some of these same people now, it's like we have the best times laughing and talking shit, and they know obviously like those spirits aren't there. So I'm in I'm in recovery from not fucking fools up too, I guess. You know what I mean? That sounds dumb, but like,
it does sound dumb. It's kind of a caveman way to say it. You know, I'm kind of ad-libbing. I'm kind of figuring this out, because I usually talk in front of groups of people, but it's a little different.
This is good, man. Like,
I'm just kind of trying to remove the mic, but I definitely want to include the audience, because I am talking to you. I am you. I was you in various stages of wherever you might be, and you know, I came out of it.
When was your like you know, alcohol came later. But when was your like end point where you were like, I'm like, you know, was there an aha moment that we talked about? He's like, where you were like,
I got locked up. I got locked up. They kept me in holding before I dressed down for almost 2 days, because everything was full, and I got swept up in concert with not in the same instance, but in the same day and in the same series as a bunch of these gangsters I was hanging out with. They did a raid on this apartment. I mean, like, we were like running this whole like block, like a couple blocks really at the time. And why was I hanging out with these people? Like, I'm a musician. Anybody that knows me or knew me was just like,
now you were just a thug that happened to do music.
I didn't even do music, dude. I gave up music for like 5 years at my worst. I stopped talking to my dad, everybody, and and it was just like what is this? Like, you have no business doing this. I remember my dad hadn't heard from me in like 3 years, and one of our coworkers at work was like, hey man, I saw Ian out in the hood, and he had a truck full of diapers. He had a truck full of Pampers. Pop the fucking, I was hanging out with some bad people, and that was my thing, you know, like, you're stealing semi-truck tires. I shouldn't even tell people how to do it, but anyways, they're probably on top of it now, because I did it way too much, and other people did too. But you know, and we would always, like, you know, we told ourselves like, oh, it's a victimless crime, because went after like big corporations that have like hella insurance, like, oh, you know, the rumors like, oh, they got $300,000 a month to cover this, like, you know, fuck the world, you owe me. Like,
probably some addict, some other idiot came up with that.
Totally, you know. Yeah, and it's like, you're the victim, so like, you owe me, and you just want to. I didn't want to be alive. The first time I did China White, I was trying to commit suicide, and it just felt like somebody put a blanket around me, and I was like, I can stay in the game, I could do this, you know. But like, yeah, so fast forward. My pops ain't heard from me. My family ain't heard from me. You know, me and my ex-wife, we are, you know, we're living in a stolen van that I took from the dealership, and then another one that I took from somebody else who took it from somebody else. Just crazy life. You know, stuff happened to our dogs. It was really heartbreaking time. And the more you go down, it's just like you're trauma bonding. Like, we started off in love. We started off best friends, and all that love turned into just trauma bonds, and the lines blur. You don't even know the difference anymore. You know, you're now creating trauma on each other and with each other that is bonding you together, and you're so bad for each other because you're so lost, you know? And so like, yeah, I go from like touring, from doing all this stuff, from being like, you know, Sacramento hometown hero and all this cool stuff, to like, Yeah, where's Ian? Oh my God, he had a truck full of stolen diapers. And he's in the hood selling them half price. Hey, what's up, homie? What size? Hey, you need some diapers? Like, that's crazy to me.
I'm sorry,
to come to that
crazy.
place,
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
Like, legit.
I bought a lot of cool things from guys like you, and when I was in
I
the
bet
hood.
you did.
But not to shed light on it, but
I
like,
love
yeah,
guys
I know
like
the
you that
life.
bought that stuff. Guys like
I
that
know the
kept me
life.
high.
I know the
Let's
life.
get
yeah.
back to the when you're in jail and you're having this.
Yeah,
like,
okay, so that was the moment. So yeah, so I get peeled up, right? And I run into some of the homies, and the homie had like an 8-ball in his dreads. And we're getting ready to dress down. And like, this is my boy. Like, they used to call him specifically the angel of death in his community. He was not somebody you mess with, and he was my brother. I had these fools that were hard as fuck and totally homophobic, like, come up, I love you, bro, giving me hugs. Like, that was the relationship I had with these people. They were my new family now, right? They were my new fan base, my new crew. And so he had an 8-ball in his dreads, and he gave me half. So that stopped my detox. So then I go in. Now, 2 days into it, you know, I slept or whatever because I took it, hooped it, you know. I get back in there, you unwrap it, wash the plastic off, transfer it to something else, and then you just put a little bit up your nose and lay down, and you're not dope sick no more. And I made that last for a little bit. And then they put me in a cell with a dude that robbed my homie's house on the streets, and I knew it. He didn't know that I knew it. So I mean, that's where the wolf mentality comes from. I'm a good wolf now, but I just know how to slide up on somebody and like, you're not even gonna know it's coming. Like, hey, what's up, bro? Bah, 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 right? And so we're in the cell and I'm like, what are you down for? He's like, oh, you know, burglary. I'm like, commercial or residential? He's like, residential. I'm all, oh, from the one on blankety blank? He's like, oh, nah, bro, we got away with that shit. Oh, yeah? So then we go at it. You know, cops come in, pop the doors, try to drag us out. And I was told, don't stop hitting them because if you're doing a long stint, like everybody else is going to see that you're going to be weak. So even though the cops are going to do what they're going to do, like keep hitting him. So I'm like really messing this dude up. I get tased from both sides, bear maced in the face, then taken. Oh, I got tased so hard, I shit my pants. You know, you're detoxing.
Yeah.
At this point, I had ran through all my stuff. So yeah, so then I'm like walking with like shit draws, and they're taking me to the shower. And then, you know, the cops were like, I don't blame them, dude. Come on. They're like, probably they're so jaded. So they're like, oh yeah, bro, just go rinse that off. Cause I'm like, you know, bear mace is rough. And it just goes all straight to your downstairs. And now that's on fire. So then they take me up to the 8th floor in TSEP and throw me in a concrete cell in solitary. And you don't even have a blanket. You're just in there in shit underwear, no clothes, cold, shivering, dope sick. And that's how I detoxed. I stayed up there for 20 days. That was the place. That's where I detoxed. And that's why I have a homie named Mohawk Matt. I think you've come across him.
Yeah.
He's with Dope Sick and Stolen,
yeah.
and he started this thing called harm prevention.
Yeah.
And he believes in what he's doing and freedom first. And, you know, he and I kind of see eye to eye on a lot of that stuff. But like we've talked about that. Your detox needs to hurt sometimes. If you're as stubborn and as wild-hearted as I was and as just committed to that hatred that's driving you, it's got to suck.
Because you have to remember, it has to be a lasting impression.
A lasting impression. That's so like with Raised by Wolves, we're not trying to make your detox fun, right? But what we're trying to not do is we're trying to not put you in a group of people where every day you're going to stand up and say, I have a disease and this disease owns me and this is me and I'm going to speak these words over myself. No, you're going to have brothers, sisters that are going to lift you up. They're going to speak faith over you and into you and encourage you. And we can put you on natural plant-based substances that will help you get to the next phase because it takes time to even get your head right, to even be a functioning adult or human.
I'm glad you're even mentioning this because our very next episode that we'll record actually probably later today is going to talk about what exactly Raised by Wolves in our program is.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that...
But I mean, that's what it's about. That's what I was doing naturally. And then when me and Joe met and we started talking... And we kind of started talking on the side, and he's like, I'm really feeling that, you know? So then it was like, well, you know, all of a sudden all the homies are doing wolf emojis in our meetings and stuff. And it's like, they're vibing on my Wolfpack recovery thing because it's like iron sharpens iron, you know?
It was weird. You don't know that part either. He was already doing something called Wolfpack recovery thing.
Yeah.
Like he was starting to talk about that. I had already came up with this idea of Raised by Wolves because of a graffiti piece that I painted. And it was weird. We're at breakfast going, the fuck, like this is like destiny, like, you know what I mean? Like Raised by Wolves,
favorite band, favorite magazine. Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we could do this. But so that's it, like, you know, challenging that, because if you get to, you know, I never had the luxury of going to rehab. Granted, if I would have maybe reached out to my family, I'm sure they would all pulled some money together and tried to get it, but I wasn't doing that. I didn't even know how to communicate. But a lot of people, you meet people at these meetings at AA and NA, and I'm not knocking AA and NA because I know it's saved a lot of people's lives. For somebody like me, I am a spiritual being, and I'm a powerful spiritual being. And if I speak negative shit into myself, bro, I'm going to believe that shit. That's what I did. I lied to myself for years, and I started believing those lies. So if you put yourself in a room full of people that are moldable and they're receiving all of that bad medicine is what I would call it, right? They're now shirking the responsibility of their addiction. There's no accountability, and accountability is one of the building blocks of Raised by Wolves. We don't want to put you in a place where they're just going to do that, or you meet all these rehab dropouts. Oh, I've been to rehab 7 times. Full on nod father in the meeting. And it's like, bro, like really, I would have loved to go to rehab once, is what I was thinking once I got clean and stuff. But it's because they take it for granted. If your detox doesn't hurt in some way, it's not going to matter. The addiction is so strong. So using natural plant-based products and having these other methods in place can really help you long-term. It's not a marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So that's really, really important to me. So I'm locked up. I detox in there. I'm still angry as hell. I'm angry at everybody. I'm begging my pops. I tried to call my grandpa to bail me out. He didn't even take the call. My dad's like, I can't bail you out, son. Like, I can't, And I remember him coming in and seeing me. Like, we ended up leaving my stepmom at one point when I got into 10th grade, and we moved out to a neighborhood called Del Paso Heights. And it is just, I'm like, oh, the trauma's about to end, Like, no, bro, like getting jumped by grown ass men on your way to school. I'm too dark for the white boys. I'm too white for, people of color and stuff. So I just didn't fit in. I wore tight pants and stuff. And I thank God I worked out in my dad's garage. So I was strong, but like, so that trauma starts building. And then so my pop sees me years later and just sees this product of all of this stuff. And he didn't mean to. He's working 14-hour days. So he's gone all the time. And then he had his own shit he was struggling with and dealing with, not drugs, but a different thing, And so that's taking a lot of his attention. And I'm just kind of like this thing that lives in his house. And so he sees me through the glass and picks up the phone. And I mean, I remember him just like shedding tears and like putting his hand on the glass. And it's like, oh my God. And at that time, I was like, didn't even know what getting clean would look like. I would literally talk about it every day. Like, bro, when I get out of here, I'm about to go hit a lick. I'm about to go get me some shit. I'm about to be on and cracking. The homies are going to give me a gun. I'm about to be back on. I'm about to beat this case. And I remember the day I went into court, I was trying to fight it. And then I just was like, you know what? I did this. And I went up in there and I did. And I asked if I could address the officer that arrested me. And I said, thank you. But that was like after 6 months of finally having a clear head for the first time. And then I got out and I got around some of the same people and I slipped up and just made some stupid mistakes. Not the same mistakes. Not like needling up or anything like that. But then, so now I'm using alcohol as a crutch and it's very toxic. I'm splitting from my ex-wife. We're very toxic because we're both broken. And she was actually doing good. I was doing good. Then we got back around each other in those trauma bonds, You talked about how like when you don't deal with stuff, it becomes a monster. Like I always say, you build these walls and then they grow teeth after a while. They're not just to protect you. They start hurting people. And that's kind of like what it was. So, then I'm like, I can't do this. I moved to Nashville and my alcoholism got pretty bad out there too. And then I injured my spine, I couldn't even walk. I'm suicidal. I have a song I wrote called The Loner. And I'll have to play it for you guys. You've heard it for sure. I definitely played it for you. And the first line says, somewhere out there is a life waiting for me to arrive. Am I going to get there, but only to find him out of time? And then there's a line that says, there's a robber on this train. He knows my fears and he calls me out by name. And I wrote that song on a day. I mean, my dude, like, I don't know if you've ever had a spinal injury. Have you? Have you ever had? So it is the worst pain. Like if it hurts from within, it's all through your tailbone, through everything, and you're not sleeping. I mean, like I felt like I wasn't sleeping for months. It felt like I would have legit with a straight face be up in the kitchen on all fours having conversations with my homies in the house. Because that's the position I had to be in to be comfortable. Either that or Jabba the Hutt on the couch or crawl up to the walker or crawl out the front door and smoke a cigarette. That's how fucked up I was because I didn't have any tools that said, love yourself, bro, help yourself. And then my mom dies in the middle of all that. And we were cool, but she was fighting for her life when I was taking everything that she gave me for granted. And I have another song I wrote that's about how she never got to see me be okay. And I know she's with me now and she sees it. But so I'm in this place, you know, and then I go through a breakup on top of it. And I had a gun in Tennessee. I cleaned the gun, load the gun, everything. And I'm like, I'm going to go take a couple shots with my homie. I'm not going to say shit. We lived out in the wilderness. I'm going to go out in the woods and it's over. You know, I'm a fucking walker my ass out there. Go in the house. We do our thing. You know, they're noticing something's up, but I've been emotional for months. So then I go out there, I'm looking for the gun. I can't find it. I'm hammered. I had a handle of vodka, you know, and I was like 3/4 of the way through that shit. I'm hammered, dude. And then I'm looking for the gun and I like slip out of the walker, boom, and it hurts so bad. And I'm like on the, just a mess, dude. No teeth, like fucking, just like if there was a camera Truman Show on me, like that was like that aha moment more than I think getting locked up. It was just like looking back, like, oh, you poor thing. I looked like Voldemort at the end of Harry Potter when he's just like this little wretched thing. And I'm like, I can't even fucking kill myself, you know? And I end up seeing the guitar and I end up grabbing the guitar and I wrote that song, The Loner. And I worked on that song for hours and I kind of like started like sort of sobering up and I was like in tears. I'm like, holy shit, like I have a purpose. I can't give up, you know? And so like, I'll introduce that. That song saved my life. And I'm really glad, you know, obviously I didn't succeed because many things would have gone to the wayside. But that was the beginning of me turning a new leaf. And then my mom's late husband, Harold, who's we're going to meet up with, he's actually out here from Canada. We took a road trip. We called it the Tour de Sandy the year she died. And
Harold's a cool guy.
I want to, yeah, dude, he made my mom's dreams come true. He married her knowing that her time was limited, but she way outlived. I think she lived for another 15 years after they called her terminal. Anyway, so I dealt with this stuff and I realized drinking was a problem. I got the back surgery. They said you're going to be on pills for, you know, X amount of years. That was just like a sentence to me. I'm like, so basically I'm stuck being a junkie. There's no way out. And then I come across Kratom. I told him on the way here, I'm like in the doctor's office, you know, they're trying to prescribe me more Roxys, which I love those. They're one of the few pills left that you could crush up and snort. Yeah. You know, you could misuse them like a mofo. And the dude's like trying to write me a script for that plus morphine. And I'm like, bro, you're not hearing me. Do you realize like there's a dog in the back of my head slobbering, barking right now, like, row, yeah, run that shit. Right. But no. So I wig out on him and I'm like in there in the walker, just got these shots in my back and this in little minimally invasive surgery. And I go off on the dude. I'm like, bro, I am a heroin addict. You're not hearing me. And I'm like yelling. And so this girl comes over. She's a nurse and she's like, hey, calm down. You know, I know you're going through a lot. She's like, just get in this wheelchair. Like, let's get you outside and shit. Like, you know, you need to sit your ass down. Like, I had got an epidural before the surgery. She's like, you know, she takes me outside and she's like, hey, like my cousin has a Kratom shop. I'm like, what's that? She's like, here's his card. She's like, I'm going to call him. She's like, I'm like, how much does it cost? I don't have any money. I just, you know, this and my dad helped me with the surgery. I'm like, I have no money. I've been selling weed to pay for physical therapy and going to a chiropractor that's just been hurting me worse. And she's like, I'll hook you up. So he gave me some red strain Kratom and it brought me enough relief to where I was able to start stretching, going through physical therapy. And the more I was doing that, the less I was drinking. And then Harold comes down, they come to California and I hang out with a couple old friends and they're like drunk and doing coke. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so unattracted to this right now. Like, I think I don't want this anymore. And then me and Harold take this road trip and, you know, it's good for both of us because we're kind of like, you know, manifesting my mom and he really helped me see things from a totally different angle. And then I remember I decided on January 1st in 2019, I'm like, I'm gonna quit smoking weed. I mean, I do use cannabis recreationally, like most of the time evenings now. But I was like, I'm going to see if I can be all the way sober. And that's, I was writing that song Almost Sober prior to that. And so I quit drinking and I quit doing that. And then last time I drank was at my sister's wedding a few months later. And we had to hike Zion the next morning and I was hungover. And I was like, never again. I'm done with this. And so that was all things that started building me. And then simultaneously I got into this biker church called Thunder Road, biker church up in Roseville. And it's like, you know, non-denominational necessarily church, where everybody could go in there and get in touch with the Christ consciousness, the Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it. You know, there's a bunch of people who have saved their own lives and who have been saved by a higher energy and called. And that was a home for me. It was I could cuss on stage at church. You know what I'm saying? I could talk about, I remember.
Was Jimmy the pastor?
No, no. I wish I would have met Jimmy
No, I'm
early
just
on,
kidding.
dude. That would have sped the process up a little bit more. But no, those people accepted me. We were a bunch of misfits, and I came in there feeling super unworthy. They asked me to just come tell my story and sing one day, and I was like super nervous, but I'm like, all right. I go in there. I'm like, I dropped an F-bomb, and I was like, looked at the pastor. He's like, "You're cool, bro."
No. Wow.
So then I'm like, and so there was this girl in there that was struggling with meth at the time. And so when I implemented meth into my process, like I believe there was bugs under my skin for like almost a year. And it turned out I was like hyperextending my whole immune system. So it was giving me an autoimmune disorder. So actually I was getting these lesions that would open up. It's called Morgellons. And like, I'm like tripping. There's like fibers in them and stuff. And like, I would swear I could feel them. Like as soon as I do my shot, like I could feel them crawl down my face. And like, I like told the story about, I had like my eyelid cut open with a scalpel. My little brother's banging on the bathroom door because, so I'm trying to be functional still. And his wife's about to have their first baby, and they're my little brother, and she's like my little sister. So I'm like, Cole, come live with me. I got you. Thinking that I'm not.
When was this? This
was before all that, right?
Oh, okay.
But I'm telling the story in 2019, and it's really hitting home for people. So like, prior to even me getting all crazy slanging and banging, I was trying to hold my shit together. It's because I became homeless, which is what put me out on the streets around those people. We got evicted multiple times, but so I let him come live with me, thinking I still got it, thinking I could still be big bro and I could, take him under my wing and shit. So he's like, his girl's like about to pop any minute. She's got to pee, and there's only one bathroom, dude. And I've been in there for like 4 hours trying to hit a vein. And he's like, oh, no. I'm like, bro, just take her up to the gas station. Like I got to get well. So I finally hit the vein, and then the bugs come. And I'm like, it was so real, you guys. I could see a worm moving underneath my eyelid. Like I could see them crawling up me. I believed it. Yeah. Psychosis is so scary. That methamphetamines, they put it together with all kinds of shit. So he comes back, he's madder than hell. He's like damn near thinking he's going to try to take on Big Bro. So he bangs on the door. I open the door, snatch him up, pull him in the bathroom. The bathroom's like 4 feet by 4 feet. We're like nose to nose, dude. And I'm holding a tissue here, and I have cut my eyelid open with a scalpel, and I'm holding a tissue, and I'm all, hey bro, look, when I lift this up, I need you to hold this flashlight, and I need you to use these tweezers and grab this worm. And he's like, what the fuck? And but like when you tell those kind of stories to addicts and stuff, like sometimes that's good because they're like, oh, I'm not that bad yet, you know? And so they're like, oh my God, maybe there's hope for me. But yeah, I could go on about it all day, but I'll kind of stop there. But like,
no, but where are you at now though? Like, what I mean?
Where
like,
I'm at now is
helping people and what we're doing, and how's your life? And
so I haven't drank since 2019. I haven't smoked a cigarette since November 17th. Well, like a couple puffs here and there, but like I like at the beginning, I would say beginning of 2020 is like no cigarettes for me. I'm doing things. I'm shedding addictions that I never imagined I could. I'm networking. I'm building my own little personal empire of, in my opinion, healing. Like that's what's most important to me. The music and everything else I do is a stepping stone to reaching into the hearts of, men and women and helping them transcend their trauma. Like, I want to help you. I want to help you. I want to help you find your superpower, because you have a superpower and it's hiding behind that door you're afraid to kick open. Like, it's behind that door, and it's going to take vulnerability. It's going to take pain. You're going to have to turn your tears into diamonds, and it's not a quick thing. Like, it's a slow and it's a steady crawl, and then it's a walk, and then you start jogging, but you have to be committed, Yeah. And that's where I'm at. I'm at a place where I have healthy love and relationships in my life. I have basically healed and reconciled with all the people that I hurt, that I loved before. My name means something, I got my grill fixed. My pops helped me with the tail end of that. I've written songs for a ton of people that I never thought I'd get an audience with before. And in turn, that's been helping me. And now I'm actually, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, because I didn't feel like with my teeth and stuff, I couldn't be the face of anything. But like now I'm finally focusing on my music, and it's actually taking me to places that, I didn't dream that was possible. So I love my life. I just went and filmed with a film crew from Canada and South America, and we filmed a bunch of cool stuff in Super 8 for one of my songs, Pick Me Up, out at Valley of Fire, one of my favorite places. And then we went on a beautiful hike. Like, my life is centered around the medicine. And as part of my process of reconnecting to my Choctaw heritage, something my mom really believed in, is good medicine, recognizing that. He said something about spirits. I heard an elder had said, basically, the reason why you act the way you do on drugs and alcohol is because your spirit needs spiritual oxygen to live. And when you take all those things, your spirit can't breathe in your body. You're like, I'm gone, right? And then what does that open you up to? Whatever it is. Whatever it is that decides, I'm going to knock this dude out with his own helmet. I'm going to hop on this motorcycle after shooting steroids and crystal, and I'm going to go as fast as I can and see what happens. Like, you know, there's cops behind me, there's helicopters behind me, and I'm going. Like, that thing that drives you is no longer has a place in my life anymore. And, you know, it's hard to talk about this stuff without getting emotional. And it's also hard to talk about it without feeling stupid or cliche. It might be cliche, bro, but I don't give a shit. I have the life I dreamed of. And I went from this little worm with no teeth and no hope and no love in a concrete box to who you see before you today. And I have awesome friends. And because I'm in this place and my intentions and my walk goes with that intentions, I can hold court with people like you guys. You know what I'm saying? And that's it.
That's a miracle.
Me, man.
That's a miracle.
Man, this is you know, I mean, just a, you know, man, like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I feel like we were the audience to a fucking crazy story that is awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm happy to share it with you guys.
It was good. Like, this is good. Like, I've heard a lot of this stuff before. He abbreviated a lot of things, which obviously because we don't have 6 hours on this podcast, but you know, it's like I can honestly say, man, you know, I mean, you know, this like, you know, Ian is like, you know, we went last year and we'll have to do it again this year. We went up to your family's, you know, ranch.
I'm going there tomorrow
in Mesquite. Went out there. We went hiking. We horseback ride. I didn't horseback ride. My wife horseback rode, and like, you know what I mean. We hung out, played music. I cooked food. Like,
we got lost in the desert looking for carvings of aliens.
Literally got lost in the desert looking for alien carvings. Sober.
Yeah, sober.
And it was just a really cool. Like, it's probably been one of the highlight trips of my since I've been sober for sure. Like, it was cool. Just hung out. I got some videos of him playing music in the living room. Then you came out to Bullhead. We were at the river. We had Ian and Harold out there. My stepkids were loving it. They loved this dude. Like, as soon as he walked in the door with the guitar, like, they were like stuck. They were like his audience. Like, he's just playing. He's on the keyboard. Like, you know what I mean? It was just a really good time. And
I'm an uncle. I take pride in being an uncle.
I mean, they were like, they acted like they knew him like their whole lives. You know what I mean? They were just, and he's just a positive person to be around, like, you know. And so it's been pretty cool. What do you think, JC?
Kids have healed. I was just gonna say real quick, kids have healed a lot of the trauma in me too. I should have mentioned. I was around my family again in 2019, and my precious little nephew, we call him Mini Vinny, aka Vinny the Pooh. He's a little too old for that shit now. He's gonna hate me for that. But that little boy saved my life. He was about the age that I was when it all went wrong. We talked about that. And so it was like the David Copperfield show when you see him when he's a kid and he grows. So like I had an opportunity to be an uncle for him, and that gave me a lot of purpose too. So he's saying the kids love me. I love the kids, man. Yeah. They remind me of me before I was hurt, and that helps strengthen me now. Sorry, go ahead.
Awesome.
No, I mean, it's a trip, man. Honestly, getting a little emotional hearing your story because it's like a miracle, dude. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And I don't know why some people don't make it out from their trauma. You know, I don't know, and you know, and why some people do. You know what I mean?
They don't have the tools.
But I think that I know for sure you've made it out because you're able to help people, right? Get to another place, right? And from what you've been through, and to be able to articulate that the way that you did today and tell a story of hope and you know, look, you don't have to sell, you know, half price diapers or shitting yourself, you know, but some people end up that way. And if you do end up that way, you still can recover. You know what I mean? And you still can get to a better place. So, I mean, really, I just want to say thanks for sharing, right?
Absolutely.
You know, I think it's a blessing, and I think you have a bright future of helping people and still a lot of more growth and healing.
Totally. I'm still healing
on your journey.
Still working.
How can people find your music and your socials and stuff?
So I'm on Spotify right now. You know, like I said, I've been writing and producing for other artists, and kind of like you said, we were talking before, like behind the scenes, because all that worthiness and stuff, and I didn't really feel like I was ready to be in. But I mean, I've got a lot of music. Right now, I got a few songs up on Spotify. They're doing pretty good. You can find me on Instagram, Ian Loveless Official, and yeah, most of the stuff that I use those I'm just kind of too much of a real person, and I'm kind of private. I'm not really good at the whole looking at my reflection in the phone and talking all the time.
It's all cool
Like,
content.
I
You
can
post a lot of cool
I get
stuff.
it, you know. I probably should be better at that, but like, you know, if you were to follow me, it's all good medicine. That's what I'm about. I hope to, when I share something, it's from the heart, and I just hope that like there's just one person that's like maybe on the edge and like about to break or something that reads that, and they're like, and it affects them. That's what my songs are for. Like, I've heard from hella people, they joke, like in the producers and engineers and people that I work with and stuff, and artists alike, they're like, Ian Loveless will make a grown man cry. Like, that's my music. And that's coming from a dude who couldn't cry. I physically used to, like, one of my best friends died and I couldn't force a tear at one point, you know?
Emotions
circle.
are a bitch. Like,
They're awesome though, dude. Like,
they are
that
awesome.
vulnerability,
Yeah.
once you give into it, okay, so just one more thing. My little brother Vincent, the one that I pulled into the bathroom, the one that was there his birthday when my mom got taken from me and, you know, everything got messed up. He was 4 years old and my mom was crying her eyes out over something, and you know, he said, or she's like, I'm sorry, baby. And he goes, it's okay, mommy. He said, the angel said that tears wash the windows of your soul. We're designed to release.
Yeah.
And if you don't put that somewhere healthy, you know, do healthy stuff like hiking, working out, all the things, you know, we all have these things in our life that we do. Like, it's going to manifest in really unhealthy ways because you become emotionally constipated. Like you were saying, like, we don't know what can stop some people is because they don't have the tools. They don't have the emotional, psychological toolkit, and they don't have a wolf pack around them. You know what I'm saying? You need that. You need support.
1000%. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And it helps to hear from people who are where you want to be.
Right.
That's the trick. Like, if I'm like, I see a dude like Joe or I see a dude like you, I'm like, man, I like to be like them. I'm like, shit, I'm gonna just see, what do I got to do to like hold court with them? Like, you know, you want to be a wolf, run with some wolves.
You don't take your car to a dentist to get it fixed. You know what I mean? So
That's
it's
a
like,
good one.
you know, it's like, you know, it's you want to be in a place that other people are at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't go ask the opinions of people that haven't got to that point.
Totally.
It's simple as that. That happens, sobriety, business, or anything else. I take very little, you know, opinions seriously from people that haven't walked in my path or are not where I want to be at in life or in that area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think more people need to do that even with sobriety. You know what I mean? Don't ask your drunk friend how to stop drinking.
Totally.
Right.
I mean, they don't know. Or maybe they do and they don't care. Like,
Yeah,
you
they
know?
don't care. No, that's actually
But-
one of the hugest points I think we've touched on today. What he said is you need to speak the language to be like the vernacular to like reach people, like, you know,
Yeah,
like I got, because otherwise you're gonna be, man, this dude don't know what it's like, you know, like if I go out to a native reservation and talk to the kids, I'll straight pull my dentures out. I'm like, dude, it's real. Let me tell you what, like, it took me years to shed those like incarceration eyes and like all that stuff. Like, it's real. You got to show people like, we speak the same language, bro. I'm not no different. I didn't have like some magic shit that you don't have access to. Like, you could do this. There's a blueprint. You just got to want it.
It's possible.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's possible. And that's enough. Having hope is enough.
It's huge.
Absolutely.
Hope is everything.
Hope is everything. That's a good way to end this. Well, thank you, Ian.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
You know, this is gonna
course.
it's
been
gonna
an
be an
honor.
awesome trip here. Here to, you know what I mean? Here in Vegas, man. We're gonna, you know, hang out some more. Thank you, JC.
Of course, brother.
You know what I mean? And thank you to everybody who's been watching the last couple episodes and this episode. And if you know somebody that's struggling, reach out to us on our socials at RZDXWLVS or on the same raisedbywolves.com, and somebody will get back to you and we can help you, you know, with the right tools. Thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Peace.